The United Kingdom is crumbling socially, economically, as well as politically. British citizens are slowly waking up to the fact that their country's economy doesn't mean much without London, and they are rightfully angry at the incompetence of their political leadership that led them to this point. This has been covered ad nauseum by fellow YouTubers from the UK, and I'm not going to beat that dead horse. Instead, I'm going to take my chainsaw to it and show you the disgusting state of rot it's in from the inside by shining the light on the UK government's authoritarian surveillance state. What the British government is doing is by far worse than any other democracy in the world, and it's in fact worse than many authoritarian regimes such as China or Russia. Trust me, I'm not being hyperbolic here. So let's begin our dive into this boring dystopia we are all living in. This is, in the end, not just about the UK. And don't worry, as bad as things are getting, I'm going to propose an array of solutions you and anyone in the world can and should do. This story begins like this. Sometime in January 2025, the UK government sent a secret order to Apple to build a covert backdoor access to all encrypted content of iCloud backups. It was covert because Apple would not be allowed to inform their users that such a backdoor was built in the UK. For Apple users, everything would seem as normal. For the UK government, everything would be accessible in plain text. By default, iCloud backups offer encryption that the UK government can already access. They can simply tell Apple to hand over information Apple can unlock, and the company has to comply. But Apple offers an optional feature called Advanced Data Protection, which, when enabled, turns on end-to-end encryption for almost all of the data in iCloud backups, including their messages, photos, or other app data. This feature is enforced with a user encryption key, which Apple cannot access and hence cannot hand over this data even if the government requested it. Now the question we must ask, how could Apple possibly comply with a request to break their own encryption that's supposed to be unbreakable? Well, breaking the encryption is actually mathematically impossible. Only quantum computing built at some point in a distant future will be able to break our modern cryptography. So breaking it today, where it's meaningful for the government, for instance for an investigation, is out of the question. And the UK government knows this. There is only one thing Apple can do. As a software developer, Apple can create a new version of iCloud that would secretly access user data before it's encrypted with a user's key and upload the data to Apple servers without end-to-end encryption. Apple could issue this new version as a software update that unwitting Apple users would install without realizing what's in it. Apple could theoretically do this in a way that no user would ever notice. Users could still see the advanced data protection is there, but it would no longer function the same way even when toggled on. If you think this is similar to any other government request in other countries, it's not. Here is why. Welcome to Watch Mojo, and here is top 10 reasons why the UK secret order is unprecedented by every metric. Reason number 10. UK secret order is targeted at all Apple users globally, not just UK users. This is the part that absolutely shocks everybody. No government has so far requested a global backdoor access. Apple gave China access to their iCloud data also, but did it only for the Chinese users, and Apple built data centers in China to comply with this request. The UK doesn't want Apple to build data centers in the country and give the government the keys to the data. UK authorities want Apple to hand over user data on any user anywhere in the world, whether or not they are a UK citizen. Whether it's Jeff Bezos, an accountant from Slovenia, or a dentist from Ohio, the Brits want it all. I want to reiterate this. Not even China had the balls to go this far with their request from Apple. Reason number 9. Apple is forced to comply with the UK's request even if it appeals and wins the appeal. By UK's law, Apple can appeal to a judge, but they cannot delay complying with the request during the appeal process even if the judge rules in Apple's favor. In the US, where Apple fought the FBI's request to build an iPhone backdoor, Apple wasn't forced to comply before a judge's decision. Reason number 8. The UK law forbids Apple from disclosing they have received such a request from the UK. In pretty much any other country, Apple can publicly share information about orders it receives. That's what they have the transparency report for. In the Apple versus the FBI case in the United States, Apple made a publicity stunt about FBI's backdoor request. Tim Cook wouldn't shut up about how Apple is a privacy company.
At Apple, we believe privacy is a fundamental human right.
And they made a commercial campaign out of it for years to come.
There have been people that suggest that we should have a back door. But the reality is if you put a back door in, that back door is for everybody, for good guys and bad guys.
If Apple says anything about the UK order, people could face prison time. Reason number 7. I've actually run out of reasons. Is this gonna be enough for my WatchMojo.com internship? I need the money. YouTube is destroying my channel. I need more patrons, please. This is where I want to paint a contrast about something very important here, at least very important to me. This order in the UK is part of a 10-year-long development that I've been closely following and covering on my channel and on my Patreon podcast. This order is a mere culmination of the UK's government effort to build a world-leading surveillance state. I know this because anytime I cover these hot topics, I don't just immediately turn on a mic and talk out of my ass. I actually conduct research, read sources, and analyze. So I know that when Apple decided to remove advanced data protection from the UK, that wasn't Apple selling out to the UK government.
This is them literally selling you out.
That was Apple being literally forced by a draconian order under threats of severe legal punishment. And as much as I have criticized Apple for not being a privacy company as they falsely claim to be, I'm not going to criticize Apple for not trying to break the law. But when I turned on Mudahar's video on this from the Some Ordinary Gamers channel, I was frustrated. He's definitely a good person, please don't take this as an attack on him, but boy is he lazy.
With Apple's, advanced data protection, this is actually a feature that was lost. This is them literally selling you out.
No, Apple didn't sell out your privacy to the UK government. They literally had no other choice. If you just read a few articles on this, you would immediately realize that Apple has always been opposed to this, and this time wasn't even allowed to put up a defense.
Apple pulled that backdoor idea. They actually took away the whole front door.
This is not Apple selling out. This is how authoritarian the UK government has become. That's the headline. By the time my video gets out, it will not be successful. It takes time for me to do my research and write careful scripts, provide sources, and fact-check everything. All of this takes days of work. Comparing his metrics with mine, I see how much more profitable it is to just spew out content daily or more frequently even. It's always quantity over quality with YouTube. I can't upload every day and still do the same amount of research. And in some cases, like it happened with this video, I had to completely redo the script because of how the story developed over the weekend. And YouTube is punishing me for this. So if you want me to continue my research, join my Patreon and become a paid member. In exchange for that, you will get early access and exclusive content. Now, in his video, Mudahar goes on to suggest that self-hosting is a solution to all of this.
There is a way you can have your cake and eat it too. And if you live in a country where you haven't lost your privacy yet, I still recommend you go through the habit of doing something known as self-hosting.
I will get to my solutions later, but self-hosting is not the silver bullet as people present it to be. You're not going to compete with multi-million-dollar security research and Apple, Google, Signal, Proton, or other security projects. Your self-hosted security will always be worse. That's especially not the solution for people in the UK who are literally forced by law to give out keys to their encrypted data. Yes, I will get to that. If you are in a country with such totalitarian surveillance laws, hosting your own data is actually worse for you. Before I talk about the solutions though, I need to really get you up to speed with how bad things are with surveillance totalitarianism. I noticed that anytime I make a video on government surveillance, especially about the UK, my video gets demonetized and or shadow banned. So share this with others because it's not likely the algorithm will bring it to them. For the past 25 years, the UK government has been trying to build the most advanced surveillance state in the world. To justify, they've actively campaigned against encryption for protecting child abusers and terrorists. It's always those two for some reason. In that campaign, UK made it legal to refuse to give the police or the government keys to unlock your encrypted data. Merely refusing to give them your keys will land you a 3-year prison sentence even if you haven't done anything illegal. When the Snowden leaks were being reported on around the world, in the UK, the government doubled down on their surveillance programs. UK journalists were ordered to destroy all evidence handed to them by Snowden, and the government prepared the new bill to legalize and vastly expand their surveillance powers. The secret order to Apple is actually based on that law. It is called the Investigatory Powers Act, and it is so totalitarian, it is dubbed the Snoopers Charter. The Investigatory Powers Act vastly expanded the surveillance powers of the British state, far beyond anything remotely acceptable in any other country, yes, US included. The UK government gave itself the authority to remotely hack any computer, network, phone, server, or any other device. They can legally install keyloggers, monitor user activity, or download any data from the user device. The law expanded this hacking in bulk. It no longer required specific targets. Instead, the government can identify any region where they think a crime could occur and conduct a large-scale hacking operation to sweep up everyone's data. By law, the government can target any communication service provider, which include everyone from an ISP through a telecom company to a messaging app. The data includes all of your content, metadata, browser history, and identifiable information. And the UK authorities can do this in real time, not just passively. The Investigatory Powers Act didn't just legalize mass surveillance by the British intelligence. It gave those intelligence powers to dozens of government agencies, not just law enforcement, but civil ones too. All local, state, and military police forces are now allowed to hack your phone. And among the most absurd examples that can also hack your phone are the Department of Health, Ministry of Justice, or the Food Standards Agency. UK surveillance state is so broad and powerful, even the United States is concerned, and that's saying a lot. To the US officials, the secret backdoor request to Apple is now considered a cyber attack. And in my opinion, that's precisely what it is. Dozens of British authorities can now hack iCloud accounts of any US person. Now all any US adversary needs to do is to compromise any one of these offices in the UK and have the full might of British surveillance power at their disposal. This is insane. Stuff like this isn't done in a democracy. This is done in a shithole. I have some other stuff to talk about in my original script, but I'm going to leave that to be part of my Patreon podcast, which you can access if you become a paid member. The higher tier you pledge, the more content and rewards you unlock. In my original script, I didn't talk enough about the solutions, so let's talk about the solutions. Even if you're not in the UK, this affects all of us, so what can you do? I divided my solutions into two categories, personal and societal, and both are equally important. Personal solutions are about what you can do to protect yourself against the surveillance state. To protect your data in a country that will punish you for it means that you have to use a service outside of that country. Self-hosting is not that solution. Start replacing your iCloud or Google account with a range of private alternatives. I know this is not as convenient as having one iCloud or Google account for everything, but you shouldn't put all your eggs into one basket anyway. For email, Tutamail offers encrypted mail and calendar. Proton also offers encrypted Drive. Instead of iMessage and WhatsApp, use Signal for private chats and calls. For private note-taking, I like Notesnook and Standard Notes. Use a private password manager to handle your logins and identities. The easiest private option is Bitwarden. To be really comprehensive, I recommend you watch my latest privacy tutorials. I'll link in the description. If registering an account for a privacy service is blocked in your country, try to get an eSIM from abroad and see if registering with that phone number works. You may also be censored based on your IP address. I recommend that you hide your IP address with Molvat VPN, iVPN, or Proton VPN. These are all VPN providers based in human rights-friendly jurisdictions outside of control of authoritarian regimes. If these VPNs also get censored, then your only option is to use Tor. Orbot is the official app that you can use to route your traffic through the anonymous Tor network for any app or even full device. It's slower, but it's free and more anonymous than a VPN. That should be a good start for the personal solutions. Now for the societal solutions. The people who build the surveillance state are nothing without the consent of the governed. The more people act on this, the better our rights will be protected. Unfortunately for the UK, much of the population seems to believe the propaganda of the surveillance state. 80% believe public CCTV surveillance should be allowed. 60% believe the British government should spy on UK residents without their knowledge. 50% believe the government should monitor any information exchanged over the internet and any information about anyone living abroad. Unless these numbers become an insignificant minority, nothing will change. We need to lobby heavily for the case of privacy and digital rights. The politicians that vote for and advocate for the surveillance state need to be protested, bothered, and humiliated. They always use the safety of children to pave their road to a dystopian hell with, but we need to flip that logic against them. Oh, you want to spy on the children? Are you a pedophile? Advocating for the surveillance state should be publicly unacceptable. We can do this by spreading awareness, lobbying, campaigning, and educating. When our rights are at stake, we must protest and petition, and if that doesn't help, strike. I have tutorials on privacy and anonymity in the streets, and I highly recommend you give them a watch and learn. If you can participate, do it. If you can't, support them financially. If you don't have the means, donate your time. This is how you can revoke your social contract if they don't respect your rights. Do this for any country, state, and city you're in. These solutions are not guaranteed to bring a victory, but neither is self-hosting. Alright, I'll stop. Sharing this video and my channel with your friends is also part of the solution. I talk a lot more about these issues and more on my podcast that you can unlock if you become a paid member on patreon.com/thehatedone. The higher tier you pledge, the more content and perks you unlock. Thank you.